All of the readings this weekend in the gospel reminded me of my father-in-law. And it would take me a little too long to explain to you why in each reading, but I want to give you a little flavor, hoping that for some of you, you might have somebody in your life that exhibits these same behaviors that kind of rubbed off on me or I took notice of from my father-in-law. In fact, part of the reason I stand before you today as a deacon is certainly because of the faith of my father, but equally because of the faith that I observed in my father-in-law. Even early on in my relationship with my wife, we liked to spend a lot of our time, our free time, with both our parents. And as time went on, and even after we got married, I found that my father-in-law and I had a lot in common, and we would do everything together. We would have dinner together as two couples with both parents, but my parents, my wife's parents, we would do that regularly. My father-in-law and I would do projects around my house. He liked to come over the house and work on projects on my house, even on his days off, and I was really appreciative of whatever he did, even if it wasn't the way I would have done it. One of the things I noticed right after he passed away, and this will sound a little strange, but he was the first person I recognized in my life that loved me but didn't have to. That sounds a little weird, but if you think about it, my parents, they kind of had to. They were stuck with me. And your children, of course we love our children. My wife, when you decide to get married, two people agree, they love each other enough, they get married. But your in-laws, not only do they not have to love you, they don't have to like you. And he was the first that I recognized after he passed away and all the things that we did together, that he loved me. And it was really a revelation for me. But he was also the biggest challenge for me because he was the first parent that we lost. And we were actually with him when he got the diagnosis that he had pancreatic cancer. And so it created a large void in my life. And it was the first loss that I really experienced that was really close to me. And after he got that diagnosis with pancreatic cancer, it didn't slow him down at all. We continued to do all the things we did together. In fact, we doubled our efforts to spend time with him because we knew our time was limited. And I remember sitting at one of the dinners at his house with him, and I said to him, how do you get up every day and deal with the fact mentally that you've got this terminal illness? You know what the end result is going to be. And he just looked at me and said, I don't think about it. And where that related for me in the gospel passage today, he did exactly what Jesus said to do. Deny self, take up your cross, and follow me. His faith was equally as strong with his diagnosis as it was before his diagnosis. That's how he dealt with it, was his faith in Jesus. Peter has that problem this week, right? Jesus turns to him and calls him Satan. Do you remember last week what Peter did? Jesus says, who do people say that I am? And Peter said, you're the Messiah, the Son of God. And Jesus says, Peter, you're a rock. I'm building my church on you. You get the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Right after that this week, Jesus explains what Messiah is. And Peter says, no way, you can't do that. You can't go to Jerusalem and get killed. The Messiah is supposed to cause suffering to our enemies. He's not supposed to suffer. And Jesus, in front of the disciples, calls him Satan. A minute ago, he was calling him rock and building the church. So I kind of related to that when my father-in-law got that diagnosis, I'm like, this can't happen to him. Well, of course it is. We're all mortal. This is going to happen to both my parents, too. It's going to happen to my wife's mother. That's where I thought about this pandemic that we've been in. One of the things that's been most challenging to me is it's been easy for me to say throughout my life, I trust in Jesus. But the pandemic pointed out to me that it's a lot easier to say that than it is to do that. I'm going through a job change right now. I've been in the same job for 10 years and I'm changing companies. A lot of stress related to that. A lot of us have work issues. We've been furloughed. People have been laid off. Financial issues. All of those stresses that we have. We're supposed to put our trust in Jesus. But then the reality of the world, it's really hard to do that because we have to go solve those problems on our own. But we don't really have to do that on our own. When we came in today, we started the Mass with the sign of the cross. Probably did it absent-mindedly. The cross is in front of us every week in the sanctuary as a reminder. Yeah, it's the means of Jesus' suffering, but it's also the means of our redemption and salvation. Everything we suffer through, including our own death, Jesus walked before us and suffered as well. A friend of mine in the parish gave me a book about spirituality that I've been reading, and it's one of those books that you need to read slowly because at the end of each couple of pages, there's kind of a homework assignment. And my wife's probably waiting for me to get to the one that says, spend an entire day without correcting anyone. I'm going to have to be careful on which day that homework assignment comes up, because I want her not around when that happens. But homework is really what it's all about. In fact, I try to do homework in each one of my homilies, because equally for me, when we leave here, this is a journey. We're trying to get closer to God. We want to get to heaven. That's why we're coming here each week. And so Jesus' homework assignment for us this week is easy. The hard thing to do is to do it. It's to take up your cross and trust in Jesus.